With a Sean Hannity show, toll free 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. The great senator from the great state of Kentucky. What's up, sir? Rand Paul, how are you?
Hey, Sean. Good to be with you.
You know, don't take this the wrong way, but I do have a certain amount of personal satisfaction knowing that your father's supporters, who threw snowballs at me in New Hampshire years ago, will also turn on you if you say something they don't like, which apparently has happened because you were on with my buddy Neil Cavuto and you said the following.
I've never argued against any technology being used when you have an imminent threat, an active crime going on. If someone comes out of a liquor store with a weapon and $50 in cash, I don't care if a drone kills him or a policeman kills him. But it's different if they want to come fly over your hot tub or your yard just because they want to do surveillance on everyone and they want to watch your activity.
Yeah, but what if they accidentally, in the pursuit of a crime, Senator, discover something else that looks bad? And it doesn't even have to be really bad, but they'll use that as justification.
Yeah, we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be willy-nilly looking into everyone's backyard and what they're doing. But if there's a killer on the loose in a neighborhood, I'm not against drones being used to search them out, heat-seeking devices being used. I'm all for law enforcement. I'm just not for surveillance when there's not probable cause that a crime's being committed. And so most of the time you get a warrant. But if someone's actively running around with a gun, you don't need a warrant. That's the way our system works.
All right, so a lot of people think that this is a different position than the 13-hour filibuster.
Well, you know, the interesting thing, Sean, is I used the exact same example of the liquor store during the 13 hours, and I can't expect that everybody watched all 13 hours, but I think at least 4 or 5 times I used the example. And I may not have explained it as well as I could have, but what I'm imagining when people are talking about this hypothetical is someone bursts out of a liquor store and there's a gunfight, an active gunfight going on. To me, in those situations, nobody questions whether the police respond to deadly force with deadly force. And it really doesn't matter so much what the technology is that's used. So, for example, we use robots to go in and dismember bombs to save human lives. There may come a time that small drones that are, you know, a foot in diameter, 6 inches in diameter, are used by the police when there is a lethal situation where it saves a police officer's life. But that doesn't mean I believe in anything regarding targeted assassination, which is what the filibuster was about. See, targeted assassination is the idea that someone who's not involved in a gunfight, who's sitting calmly in a cafe, could be targeted with a strike by a drone or any kind of weapon, a sniper, a spear, or a knife. We just don't want the government to kill people who are just sitting around, and we may accuse them of being associated with terrorism.
I think it runs a little deeper than that, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. And I read some of the criticism of you, and I did, as I said, there's a little dark, sick side of me that kind of enjoyed you getting beat up by your dad's supporters.
Thanks a lot,
considering
Sean.
Considering I've been through this experience in my life, and I still like your dad, and I agree with him on a lot of things, but I think what they're saying, and this, I have trepidation because I just have a natural distrust of government. And for example, I would support the use of drones for surveillance on the border. But then I worry in the back of my mind about the slippery slope, and they start Google Earthing right into my backyard and watching me in my shorts and my T-shirt swimming in my pool.
And that would be a bad image, Sean. We don't want to see that.
That would be
on
a
our
horrific
television set. So the thing is I'm completely with you. The surveillance state, I'm against it. I think open spaces, even if they're your property or still your private property, I don't want any surveillance drones. I don't want any surveillance without a warrant, but there will be times with a warrant that you will use new technology. It's more about the process of the Bill of Rights and the protection of the Bill of Rights than it is one particular technology. The reason why drones are more important is they can be so distant, that they can be so surreptitious, that we have to be more conscious of trying to protect our Bill of Rights with that. But I think people got the misconception, and what's really wrong about this started out on left-wing blogs, spread to right-wing blogs, but the thing is the example I used and the words I used on Cavuto are exactly the same words I used during the 13-hour filibuster. We have the video clips now. It's exactly the same same words.
What is the distinction then between what you were saying during the filibuster and what you said on Cavuto yesterday?
None, absolutely none. I said the exact same words. I used the exact same example of someone robbing a liquor store. What people are imagining is they think I'm talking about someone calmly walking out, his pistol's holstered, and he has the cash in his hand. What I'm imagining is a guy running out of a store. They're yelling, "Stop, thief." The police confront him and say, "Stop, thief," and he draws his gun and either shoots at them or threatens the police.
I guess what you know what I'm thinking the fear is of a lot of people, and by the way, I share this because I don't have a trust for government, rightly so. But I think people are thinking, well, if the police are going to shoot him, that's sort of their job. We agree with policing. But the idea that we can, snap a finger and a drone's going to be hanging over the liquor store that's being robbed is troubling to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that's not what I'm thinking of, because, see, what I'm imagining is police officers in his car, and they're shooting at the car. So instead of the police officer getting out of the car, there's going to be a day that he pushes a button in his car, and he's able to, either with a drone or some kind of weapon from his car, engage in a gunfight without actually exposing himself or herself to harm. So really all I'm saying, and this is all besides the point, it's really about, can deadly force be used when deadly force is threatened? But all over the internet, you got these people going crazy saying, oh, this perfectly calm and peaceful robber's coming out, and he's going to hit him with a drone from 30,000 feet. That's not what I'm talking about. Drone technology could be a robot technology. It could be any modern mechanization of being able to use a gun against someone who's shooting at you. But what I'm talking about is when someone is shooting at the police have the right to shoot back. Nobody questions that. So we've gone off this deep end that some people think, oh, I've reversed myself. But the interesting thing is we have all the clips. We've put it on our website. You can look at the clip on the website from the filibuster when I'm saying exactly the same thing. So what I think really happened here is somebody on the left decided, oh, we're going to find him flip-flopping and we're going to put it out that he changed. My position's exactly the same. I believe so strongly in this. I stood for 13 hours. I haven't changed my position.
Yeah, but do you worry that with, for example, the new technology such as drones, that our privacy is going to be in real serious jeopardy? I'll tell you what annoys me. I recently got a ticket in the mail because they had one of those cameras set up at a red light, and somebody who was driving my car, by the way, I have no idea who was driving my car at that hour. Somebody who was driving the car ran through a red light, and it's an $84 fine. That irritates me to no end.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the red light cameras. I'm also in no way a supporter of drone surveillance. I'm in no way a supporter of drone targeted killings. No. And so I think really people got carried away with something, because in Washington, there's no greater champion of someone who believes in your privacy, wants to keep the government out of your bedroom and your backyard and your hot tub and your swimming pool and your farm or where you hunt or where you keep your cattle. I don't want the government involved in any of these things. But people have to remember that it's more about the Bill of Rights than it is the particular technology. We just have to be more concerned and more, we have to guard our liberties more because technology is advancing. But it's the same. I'm against targeted killings, whether they're from a drone or a sniper. We've had rifles for hundreds of years now, but I don't want Americans to be killed in a cafe or a restaurant from 1,500 meters or from 15,000 feet. But it is more about the targeted killing than it is a particular kind of weapon.
All right, let me move on. Did you hear what Mayor Bloomberg, Nanny Bloomberg, had to say?
Which time?
He announced that the Constitution would have to be reinterpreted in order to curtail civil liberties to prevent terrorism. And he likened the interpretation of the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment, which he says allowed for greater gun control to preserve public safety. You know, people like him are beginning to scare the hell out of me.
Absolutely. I couldn't be more frightened than a person like Bloomberg who believes that somehow the Constitution ought to just be wiped out by a majority vote. But he's not new in this. There are people, you remember when the president said, well, I can't believe the Supreme Court would look at Obamacare. We passed it by a majority. So the president and many progressives, the other word for liberal, they believe that majorities can decide rules. But there's a dark history to majorities, and I tell people all the time when I speak to African American audiences is that majorities in the South passed the Jim Crow laws. You don't want to believe in democracy or majority rule, because majority rule can do bad things. You have to believe in a constitutional republic that protects your liberties from majorities.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. One of the things, I guess, as we think about this, I would imagine warfare in coming decades is probably going to be a lot less man-intensive in terms of boots on the ground.
Yeah, and I gave testimony on the drone issue this week, just yesterday, and in my testimony, one of the things I mentioned, and this really does scare me, is that within a few years, I think politicians and generals in our country are going to be targeted by terrorist drones. I talked to a guy yesterday who made his own drone to fly around just for a hobby. I mean, people can make their drones at home. They're going to be weaponized drones coming from our enemies, and what I fear is within 5 years we're going to be, covering up and walking underground to be protected from terrorist drones. And so it is a big concern of where technology is going and what's going to happen.
Let me move on to the immigration issue. I've interviewed you, and I've interviewed Senator Rubio, and I've interviewed Jeb Bush, and I've interviewed a bunch of people on the issue, and I'm getting a chance to go over the Senate bill piece by piece. And here's my problem. And I really think that this is being put forward, especially by somebody like Marco Rubio, with the best of intentions. And I think the world of him. I think both he and you and Mike Lee and Ted Cruz, I'm really thankful that you four guys are there, because you're kind of the hope for the future for this conservative movement, as far as I'm concerned. Even though you're more libertarian conservative, your voice is really important. And I have two problems with it. Number one, I want the border secure first and foremost for national security reasons. We should be doing that now. And at the end of the day, as I look at all the different qualifiers, all the different target dates, all of the different things that are involved in this, I have zero faith at the end of the day, Senator, that it's going to be done and done right, and that we're just going to have another, quote, amnesty debate 5, 10, 15 years from now. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I couldn't agree with you more, and as a conservative, I can support this, but it's going to have to be stronger. So I have an amendment I call Trust But Verify, and what it says is border security has to come first, that immigration reform or any kind of normalization of people who are here is dependent on border security, and that Congress gets to vote each year. For at least 5 years, we vote each year on whether the border's secure before we do the normalization.
Have you talked to Marco about it?
Yes, we have, and I think there may actually end up being some agreement. I don't know if the Gang of Eight will agree to it, and that's probably why I wasn't invited to be a gang member. But
you're a gang member of one, Senator. I mean,
yeah.
you don't need an edit. Listen, just having your father in your gang is enough. I mean, he's got a whole army behind him.
But we are going to produce that, and that'll be secure the border first. We also have a couple of other amendments. I think there shouldn't be a new pathway to citizenship. What they do is they create a new visa category. I would say give people who are here, and I am for doing some kind of reform, give them work visas. If they want to work, they get work visas. The work visa is not connected to citizenship in any way, but I would say if you want to be a citizen, you get in the same line that someone in Mexico City gets in. So right now today, if you're in Mexico City and you want to become an American citizen, there is a line. What I would say to those
they don't even get in that line until 10 years later, as I understand it.
Well, they don't ever get in that line because they're a different category, and I think that's one of the problems I'd like to fix with this. So we're going to have an amendment that'll say no new pathway to citizenship, but the pathway will be the same pathway that someone in Mexico City gets in. And that's something we have to work out the details on, but then there wouldn't be a special category. Everybody would just get a work visa, which we already have, and then we have to make the work visas work, because the biggest problem we have is 500,000 people are coming in to pick crops, and 65,000 of them are using the visa program, the work visas. So the program's not working. So each year there's nearly 450,000 people coming in to pick crops illegally. That's where your illegal immigration comes from. So you have to fix the work visa problem where farmers use it and it is usable and it's not expensive and doesn't take months to use. They have a paper system that takes 2.5 months to process one worker. Nobody's going to use that.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else going on? How are the Democrats treating you over there?
I get a little bit of grief now and again from a few of the Democrats. But, the one thing we're going to try to do... Are there
any of them you get along with or like?
Actually, there are a couple on the civil liberties side. Ron Wyden and I do a lot of things together. We try to protect Internet freedom, and
he was pretty good on your filibuster. I agree. I was actually shocked.
Yeah. The thing we're going to do this week is the big news is they're trying to pass an internet sales tax. I'm opposed to that.
Oh, good grief. I can't
But I'm going to
believe
have an amendment on it, and my amendment would cut the corporate income tax to 25%. I'm tired of people waiting around saying, oh, we'll fix it when we do tax reform. Most of Europe is less than we are. Canada's half of us. Canada's at 15%, and we're at 35%. We have the highest corporate tax in the world. If we want to stimulate the economy, let's just cut the corporate income tax. So I have an amendment that will do that.
Senator Rand Paul, appreciate you being with us. When we come back, we're going to look at yet another.